Hey guys, welcome back to another day of DFS Den. And today, my dad and Chris are going to be talking to you guys about football. And you guys can like and sub if you like this channel. And you can always unsubscribe at any point. But why would you ever want to? It's the best channel. Even Chris would agree with me.
Absolutely. Well done, Braden. Thank you. And as we let the heir apparent Braden go out of the room, Dave is going to sit down, and you know what you're going to get here on DFS Den. As he sits down, what a beautiful intro. It's so fun. It's just so fun to have those little, those little intricacies in parts of shows. You get some broadcasts are so, buttoned up and so robotic. And I would imagine those kind of people don't have many viewers, or they're whatever, but if that's what they love to do. But this is what I love to do: sit with you here. We're going to go over week one. It is finally here. We've done a few shows so far, but they were kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, they were kind of we're just biding our time. We were just kind of like I don't know, just going through the motions, because we had this Detroit Lions Kansas City game in the back of our mind that we were stressed about. Now we're on cloud nine. Now that that is gone, I have not an inkling of stress or anxiety, or I have nothing holding me back from Sunday with all this football games, given the fact that our team, the Detroit Lions, played yesterday and won. So now we can just breathe a sigh of relief, and we can dig in and really talk about week one. Dave Eddy, Mr. Corporal Eddie, what are we doing here tonight? How are you, buddy?
I am fantastic. I'm ready to win some money, and been looking over things here since, oh God, I mean, honestly, since what, the middle of August or so, and now we're through the preseason. We're through the opening game of the season as well, and so now we can really dig our heels in. This Friday show is meant to be fairly detailed, kind of give you as up to the date information as we can. We're recording this on Friday night. You're watching this on probably Saturday morning, when it comes out. We give you the most information we can. And then come Sunday, we're going to be right back here on YouTube. We come on at noon, and then we're going to have the absolute most precise information we can possibly get you before lock. But the meat and potatoes comes right here. And so, Chris, I think that we've rambled on enough, and I think the people are ready to hear about some quarterbacks for week one. Now, just to be clear again, you're talking about things pretty much from an MME standpoint.
Absolutely, yes.
I'm talking about things from a cash standpoint. So, we've got your bases covered there, but just want to make that clear as we go through things here. But Chris, you want to take the lead here and talk about, the quarterbacks here that you're interested in for week one?
Absolutely. I couldn't ask me fast enough. Now, if you, what I love about a show idea like this, and what we're going to talk about, granted Friday, you can almost, I know I do, I've been doing it for years on end. I use my bottom of the barrel notes. It's basically my script throughout the week. If I'm asked to go on this show, that show, Good Morning America, whatever it is, I can bring this here with me. So when you toss it to me to talk about quarterbacks in GPPs and such, I have everything written down here that's already been published here at the Fantasy Six Pack. I do want to say briefly, when you look at Jalen Hurts, he is the most expensive quarterback on the slate. I think he's worth every penny. And I only say that because as we go down, it puts the other price tags, into perspective when we go from there. I want to stop with, I mean, we could do this all night. I could talk about 1,000 guys, but I there's something about Brock Purdy this weekend. San Francisco's going to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh right now, 16th overall against opposing quarterbacks. And I said that yesterday in the single game slate video. Right now, DVP isn't as it's not much. There's not much to be taken out of that. Maybe give us a week or two, maybe 3-4 weeks, and we'll go from there. But Brock Purdy, 6.9 on FanDuel, 5.4 on DK, only $22 on Yahoo. And to be fair, my big comment here, my big headline with Brock Purdy is, let's see what all the fuss is about. You got rid of Trey Lance. You got hosed in that draft, and you want Brock Purdy as your quarterback because you traded away Trey Lance. let's see what all the fuss is about. And if they're going to go through all this nonsense and get raked over the coals for what they lost and what they gave up and what they could have had, all for Mr. Irrelevant here, they're obviously they're going to use him, and they're going to use him well often, and we go from there. And when I look at this, I got to flip the page here because I'm starting to hyperventilate here. San Francisco at Pittsburgh, the over-under in that one is 41.5 points, right? So when you look at that, you're like 41.5. It's kind of on the lower end when you look across the board or down the list here of over-unders here. I think Brock Purdy is able to find the end zone twice, whether it's in the air once, on the ground once, 2-1, 2-1, however you want to do it. But I love Brock Purdy. Actually, let me rephrase that. I don't love Brock Purdy this week. I'm just interested to see what all the fuss is about that San Francisco has placed on him. We have to mention Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. When you look at him, Jacksonville right now, 26th overall against opposing quarterbacks, 6-7 on FanDuel, 5-6 on DraftKings. And on Yahoo, only $22. He has been, since the day he was drafted, he was going to be the week 1 starter. And everything I've seen, or you've seen, or anybody out there in La La Land, we've seen him make very good plays. And he is a spark plug to this team. Jim Irsay looks like a complete fool with how he's handling this JT situation. And that's for a topic for another time. But Anthony Richardson, to me, has what he needs in front of him to succeed, right? And he's going to make a few mistakes in his first game, second game, sure. But when you look at his price tag across the board, it's right where it needs to be for me to feel comfortable for putting him in there. And then as we get through the video a little bit here, hopefully it's not 6 hours, there's little things that you can stack him with. And there's like a trio of running backs in Indianapolis that you can stack him up with, and some wide receivers and all that. And I'll give you one more guy. I mentioned him on maybe 1 or 2 shows previous to this, and that's Desmond Ridder. Atlanta is playing Carolina. Carolina 24th overall against opposing quarterbacks. Carolina's got nothing going for them right now. It's not like they're going to do anything of note. Atlanta's not supposed to do anything as well, but they have a young and top-notch exciting offense. So to me, Desmond Ridder, 6.5 on FanDuel, 4.9 on DK, only $20 on Yahoo. I think he can do some damage. And I know what you're going to say. You'll watch the video, or even if you've already looked up player projections, it looks as though Desmond Ridder is only projected to throw for like 170 yards or something. You know, that all that nonsense doesn't matter to me. From what I see and what I feel here, that's what I trust. So I love Desmond Ridder in my DFS lineups this weekend, and we shall see. Off to you, Dave. I talked way too long.
No, not at all, man. So a couple things. Now, going back to the Desmond Ridder thing, first of all, projections are a fantastic thing. You cannot live and die by projections. And, you know, that goes for cash and that goes for MME as well. If you are literally just for lack of a better term, a slave to the projections, you are going to be in the vast majority of the field, and you're going to be building very much like everybody else. And that's not a profitable way about moving forward. So, you know, if you designate, Ridder as a guy that you like, yeah, I mean, obviously the projections are a way to help to get you to certain players. But when it comes to building a lineup, then it becomes a little bit more of an art. You're not necessarily looking to build the highest projected lineup. You're more looking to build a correlated lineup based around what you think is going to happen. And that kind of, is really important when it comes to showdowns, because you're focused on one particular game. Here we're talking about, a whole handful of games. You're talking about the 1 p.m. games, all the 4 p.m. games. So, you're trying to just pick and choose, and you want to base it around game script. So don't be a slave to the projections, is a piece of advice. But as far as me here, from a cash perspective, what I want to do is I kind of want to run you through what is now my trimmed down player pool. So all the guys that are currently under consideration, which isn't going to be that many. And as we go through each position, I'm just going to run you from, my favorite all the way down to my least favorite. And a lot of this, when we get to the wide receivers especially, is going to be, a lot of it's going to be based on injury. My lineup is probably pretty well set right now. Who's going to fill that flex spot, and we'll get into that in a little bit, is really going to depend on who's in, who's out We won't know that information until Sunday at 11:30-ish. So that's why that 12 o'clock show becomes super important. So anyways, after all that, let's get to quarterbacks here. Again, going in order of guys that, I'm looking to play and working my way down probably. So I start with Sam Howell, okay? Sam Howell is not necessarily in play here because of his projections. It comes down to there are 3 guys this week that I have as pretty much a lock for being cash. And so I've got to kind of work around that. Sam Howell comes in as one of the cheaper options on the slate, $4,900 on DraftKings, and he's got a great matchup. Now, normally I would kind of dive into, like Chris says, some, DVP, like how's his opponent against, that position and stuff. But we have nothing to go off of right now. I don't believe in looking back at last year's stats because a lot of people, you'll hear a lot of, people in week 1 citing, last year the Cardinals were X against the pass, or take that with the biggest.
How much player personnel has changed over since then to now, and coaching staffs and schemes.
Staffs. Exactly. So
it's the silliest argument of all time.
No, so I don't like that. And so this is going to be one of the shows where I'm not going to give you a whole bunch of that data. This is mostly game theory kind of stuff. So Sam Howell, $4,900, basically giving them away at quarterback, makes everything else fit. Kind of a no-brainer for me, I think, in cash, but there are some other options. So again, $4,900 on DraftKings. You go up to $6,100, an extra $1,200. You got Geno Smith. Now, Geno Smith is going up against the Rams. You would expect that that's a game that Seattle wins. You expect that they're going to score points. He sure as heck has got a lot of people to throw the ball to. Again, pretty reasonably priced with a quote-unquote good matchup. I don't hate if you want to go in the Geno Smith realm. And then if you want to pay up to a guy about as high as I would consider going for cash this week, I'm looking at Justin Herbert. Herbert's going up against Miami. Again, don't really care about, Miami's defense last year, but what I care about is this is a really good game environment. There should be a lot of points scored here. Herbert is, could very well be the MVP this season. He's got the highest over-under for passing yards for the week 1. So, Vegas is expecting him to have a high volume. So if you want to pay up at quarterback, that's your option. I give you the mid-tier guy at Geno, and I give you the bottom of the barrel guy, for lack of a better term there, Chris, with Sam Howell. So that's where I'm looking. Let's go ahead and hit some running backs. What are you looking at?
Man, the running back, I know this is only week 1 and things are going to get juicier and juicier, but there are a couple matchups I have my eyes on right here. Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, Javonte Williams, and everybody, no matter where you go or who you talk to, Javonte is going to have a big role in week 1, or Javonte is going to take a back seat to Samaje Perine in week 1. And regardless of what narrative you're following, given his price tag, it's enough, pay the price of admission for Javonte Williams. Denver's playing Las Vegas. Vegas 28th overall against opposing running backs. Javonte, we know he tore up his knee, but he looks healthy again. He's going to be active for week 1, and I think he does do some damage. Javonte, 6'5" on FanDuel, only 5'7" on DK, $22 on Yahoo. There's something pulling me towards J.K. Dobbins as well, and that's a different feel for me because I've never been a J.K. Dobbins fan, and it has nothing to do with the fact that he played at Ohio State. I don't like anything Ohio, none of that kind of stuff. But we saw that I mentioned this in Bottom of the Barrel article. There was a play last year late in the season when he came back and he ripped off like a 30-40 yard run, and it looked awkward. It looked like he was looked painful. I mean, he was moving, but he was kind of standing up straighter than he normally would, and it looked painful. And that's what everybody was talking about. But JK said, no, I'm good. It was okay. It was actually hurting me a little bit, but hey, I'm here for the team. Now he's fully healthy. Lamar's all sewn up. The Baltimore Ravens are ready to rock and give it a shot here. And when you look at J.K. Dobbins playing Houston, we picked on Houston every flipping week last year. They're dead last. They were dead last year. So why wouldn't we anoint them dead last last in DVP wise against opposing running backs in week 1. 32nd overall. J.K. Dobbins, 6.5 on FanDuel, 6.6 on DK, $21 on Yahoo. And I don't want to hear all that bullshit about Lamar Jackson is their running back on the goal line. If they've given Lamar Jackson all that money, you best believe they sat his ass down and said, you need to hold it back a little bit. If you can run, but don't just run just for the hell of it. We've got way too much money invested in you to just be running around playing, my hair is on fire game. So when they're on the goal line, sure, Lamar might find an edge once in a while. But for me, for my sake, J.K. Dobbins will be their lead back, their goal line back, and I love everything about it in week 1 with him. I'll give you one more guy quickly as I go down the list here. I'm picking. Let's talk about both boys in Indianapolis. Since I mentioned Anthony Richardson, that's Deion Jackson. That's the rookie Evan Hall. Evan Hall has looked great all spring, all summer. It looked as though if Jonathan Taylor was the RB1, none of this ever happened. If Jonathan Taylor was going to be the starting running back in week 1, Evan Hall was trending this close to being the backup running back if JT was there. JT's not. So now it's going to be like the Deion Evan Hall show. And I've said it before. I put my money where my mouth is. I've won tons of dough this way. I have no issue at all putting Deion Jackson and Evan Hall in the same lineup. Stack them up with Anthony Richardson. I don't care. It's week 1. Anything is possible. And these guys are dirt cheap. Jacksonville, 18th overall against opposing running backs. Deion, 5.6 on FanDuel, 4.1 on DraftKings. Evan Hall, 5.1 on FanDuel, only $4,000 on DraftKings. So to me, if I had to start game theory, if that's what we're going to do, I guess in the last 16 minutes we've been talking, I've talked myself into some sort of weird, cheaply rookie-made Indianapolis Colts stack. And hey, here we are, and I'm good with it. I'll put a lineup together with this stack. I'll share the screenshot, and we'll see what we get. That's what I got at running back. I mean, again, we could be here all day, the two of us. I have just an abundance of information here.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We could have a 6-hour episode if we wanted to, and it wouldn't be hard at all. Let me get to my guys. Again, we're looking at DK Cash. For my taste, at the top of the list is Austin Eckler. I don't even know that I need to sit there and explain that too much. Again, same thing I talked about Herbert. That's going to be a game environment that's going to be, very rich in scoring. Eckler is a guy who's going to catch balls. He's a guy who's going to run balls. He scored a ton of touchdowns last year. He's expensive, but that's part of why we're paying down for Sam Howell, and we'll get into other ways I'm going to do that. Next guy, like Rachaad White. Again, another guy who is going to catch a ton of balls. Don't quote me on this, but I believe the last 6 weeks he had 30 catches, I think, over the last 6 weeks. And he's the RB1, at least for now. And so, he's a 3-down back. He's a guy who, they're not taking him out on 3rd down. Yes, he's not going to get, 90% of the snaps or anything like that, but volume at running back is what I'm looking for. And when I can get that with a guy who's going to be catching balls as well, that's kind of a no-brainer. And he's pretty cheap. Let me go over here, and I don't have it written down, but $5,500 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I have him right here, and he's $6,400 on FanDuel, only $17 on Yahoo. And as it stands right now, Minnesota 17th overall against defending opposing running backs. Minnesota's defense is it's awful. Their offense, it's another story, but their defense, and I hope it doesn't get any better than what it is now. But hey,
yeah. So he's a guy who's super cheap. He's the second cheapest running back that I have in my pool here. So again, I'm finding ways to save money, and we will get to why eventually later. I know I already mentioned Eckler, but when we get to wide receivers, that's where it really happens. Then we got Raheem Mostert, $100 cheaper than Rachaad White. Jeff Wilson is on IR. Everyone else in that backfield is injured. We probably are going to see a heavy dose of Raheem Mostert. Again, $5,400. It's nice savings for a guy who's going to get a lot of volume. Sign me up. Joe Mixon. Now we get a little bit more expensive here if you want to go this route. He's $6,800 on DraftKings, but we don't know exactly where Burrow's health stands. Mixon is a guy who, he's not really sharing that backfield. He's going to be the 3-down back. I mean, yeah, he'll get some rest here and there, but he is an RB1. There's not a ton of those guys left in the league. So he's a guy that, we expect to get lots of touches. Not a big surprise if he gets 1-2 touchdowns. So definitely in the mix there. When we talk about the king of volume, Derrick Henry is next on my list. Derrick Henry, $7,800. So, you're paying up for him. But I mean, man, Derrick Henry easily gets 30 touches in any given week. And, again, volume is king. Derrick Henry is a guy that's most certainly in play for me. Last one I'll give you here, Kenneth Walker, kind of a little on the lower end of things, 6,000. Kind of the same thing with Geno here. We expect that the Seahawks are going to win this game, maybe easily. So we could see a lot of K9 in the second half with a lot of carries. Maybe Salton the way with a touchdown. Maybe he gets one, before that as they build a lead. So that's my running back pool for this week. Chris, why don't you go ahead and lead us into the wide receiver room?
Well, Dave, before we move to wide receivers, if it helps, I have all my game. I have my over-unders, and I have final scores for every game this week. And you want to know about Seattle
Sure.
hosting the Rams? I have Seattle winning this game 27-20. So it's going to be points there. But is 7 points a blowout? No, that's a one-possession game. But one more point could be 28, and then you're looking at 4 touchdowns. Hey, but to me, Seattle, you can't go wrong with Geno Smith and as you said, the Kenneth Walker, the Michigan State guy. When we look at wide receivers, first and foremost, just look at Justin Jefferson. And I say this again, by the second show, by the next set of bottom of the barrel, you'll know why I put the most expensive player at the position. It puts into perspective what other guys that I'm talking about. Justin Jefferson, 9.5 on FanDuel, 8.8 on DraftKings, $38 on Yahoo. Stone cold stud against the iffy Tampa Bay secondary. But when we go down, it's got to be, there's this connection I have. It could be a 3-way, but right now it's a 2-way between Chris Godwin and Tyler Lockett. They both are treated, in my eyes, they're both treated the same way across in media, right? They're both undervalued. People just brush them off. They're whatever. But at the end of the day, all they're doing is catching footballs and getting yards and scoring touchdowns and just being, in the top 12 at least of wide receivers for certain periods of time here. Let's stop at Chris Godwin really quick. As I said, that Tampa Bay's in Minnesota 31st overall against opposing wide receivers. And it looks like Mike Evans is having an issue with his contract. He wants to be there long-term, but they've been going at this for over a year is what I've read, Dave, Mike Evans and Tampa Bay. And if it hasn't happened yet, I don't think it will. What that means for Mike Evans' long-term outlook, that's not for me to discuss. But Chris Godwin, 6.8 on FanDuel, 5.9 on DraftKings, only $22 on Yahoo. I think Chris Godwin is a good bet for 7 to 8 targets, 5 to 6 receptions, 55 to 60 yards. And if he finds the end zone, that's sweet given his price tag. And maybe one day we can run over the value chart. And, if a guy scores 48 FanDuel points, given his salary, and how you can chop that up in terms of X times value. We won't do that here tonight, but it is something fun I like to do every once in a while. And when we go down, Tyler Lockett is even more so thrown to the scrap heap than anybody else because they had Russ Wilson, they had DK Metcalf, they had all these other stars and studs. And Lockett was just one of these guys where he would have 3, maybe 4 games a season where it was like he would wreck everybody's week. He would score 3 times. He would put up 300 yards. But the only caveat there was you never knew which week it was going to be. And then there was so many highs and so many lows that it was like we were like twisting your arm where it's like, I can't take him off my bench. But what if it's one of those weeks where he scores 3 times and hangs 250 yards? I think that's going to kind of right itself this season where it's not going to be so high and low, so manic. He's not going to be manic with his fantasy football stuff. Tyler Lockett, 6.8 on FanDuel, 6.7 on DK, only $18 on Yahoo. I see him putting up a similar stat line as Chris Godwin. You're looking at maybe a little bit less in terms of targets, 5 to 6 targets. 4 to 5 receptions, 55 yards, maybe even 60 yards. Do we see some sort of weird reverse play with him because it's week 1, game 1? I don't know, but I love Tyler Lockett. One more guy I'd like to give you. I'm going to turn the page over on this one when I dig into this next guy, and it's actually another twofer. It's both guys in Denver, Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims. Jerry Jeudy is on the shelf right now. Doesn't look like it's going to be a long-term thing, thank God, because I do enjoy a good Jerry Jeudy game here. But Cortland Sutton, 5'9" on FanDuel, 5'2" on DK. Marvin Mims Jr., 4'7" on FanDuel, only $3,000 on DraftKings. These two Denver wide receivers are as cheap as it gets. And if I remember correctly, the first time you and I ever sat down to broadcast the show, I said I love Russell Wilson, and I still do. But why would I love Russell Wilson? Because these two wide receivers, and in a Sean Payton-led offense, he's had all this time to put together in his secret labs, and I don't know what he's doing. So to me, Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims make for a nice, beautiful stack with Javonte or with Samaje Perine. You throw in Russell Wilson, and boom, you got your Denver Broncos stack, which if I'm looking at what I have for game scripts and final scores here, Denver's going to hang, 25, 28 points here. So we could see a case here where Sutton scores a touchdown, Mims scores a touchdown, and Russ Wilson threw a touchdown to each guy. That would be beautiful. I'm done with wide receivers.
No, you're absolutely right. And we finally have some overlap. And I know it's going to be hit or miss because, I'm not looking at it from an MME perspective while you are. So I'm talking a lot of times about more boring guys. And, you get the more fun, kind of topics. But this is a week to me.
I don't want to make you feel. You can have fun topics. I don't want to be the fun guy, and you're like the boring bum. We can switch every week. Bad cop, good cop, boring plays, and
I like it because I think cash is fun. Building one single lineup, each week for cash
entries. Yeah, I love.
Yeah, I think it's a ton of fun, but. It's not often I get to talk about, the flyer guys, the guys who are like MME only, But like I said, we do have some overlap here, and the overlap is good and bad. It's bad because when we don't have overlap, we talk about more players. When we do have overlap, it just means that, they're viable in a whole variety of formats.
Write the overlap players down, highlight them, and put and mix and match them in your lineups. If I said it and you said it, then it's got to be as good as gold, right? In my book.
Yeah, for sure. And so wide receivers is where it gets interesting in cash this week for me. This is turning out to be a very studs and duds or stars and scrubs kind of a week because I've been talking about, we're paying down here, we're paying down there, and whatever. I want to afford Eckler, and I have a couple of other guys I want to afford. There's two guys at receiver that I'm playing this week along with Eckler. Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson. Now, again, I don't need to get into this too tremendously because we know who these guys are, but just real quick, right? Tyreek Hill on the opposite side of the field as, the Herbert and Eckler that we've been talking about, a great game environment, expecting a lot of points there. Tyreek Hill's only $8,200 on DraftKings this week. I don't think that's very expensive for, the second highest price receiver on the slate. When we get later in the year, pricing starts to tighten up, and you're not going to be able to play Eckler, Tyreek, and, Jefferson in the same lineup, no matter, I guess you could punt everywhere else, but it's not going to be viable. So it's kind of fun to be able to do this. Then we got Justin Jefferson, best receiver in football. He's in a underrated offense. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is fantastic, but when they're playing at home, they are way better than when they play on the road. And so I think that Justin Jefferson, he's only $8,800. Again, that's expensive, but all things considered, no problem. Then we start getting into some goofiness, right? I got Jahan Dotson next on my list. Jahan Dotson is a guy that I think is going to enjoy a massive breakout season. Now, in DFS, that is borderline irrelevant because we're going week by week. But it's just a nice little correlation that is completely unintentional that I'm probably playing Sam Howell at quarterback. Jahan Dotson naturally is going to fit. Even if I was playing Justin Herbert, I would still be just as interested in playing Dotson here. But it's nice that we would get that natural correlation. And so we'll see what we get, in week one. I don't know if we're going to see Terry McLaurin on the field or not. If we do, I don't know what level, he's going to be, participating there. So I think that bumps Dotson up even more. Then we get into some scary names, but this is what we need to do to play Eckler, Hill, and Jefferson. So these are guys that I'm looking at in cash. I'm going to be playing at least one of them, more than likely two. It just depends on what happens to who I'm going to play. First, I got to talk about Tutu Atwell. We have no Cooper Kupp. That makes Van Jefferson the wide receiver one there. Van Jefferson is not a wide receiver one. So, you've got him and you've got Higbee, who are kind of the obvious guys that are going to soak up targets. We expect that the Rams are going to be playing from behind, so they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. I can get a minimum priced Tutu Atwell in a game where they might be throwing the ball 40, 45, 50 times. I need to save money anyways. He makes for a terrific play. Marvin Mims, you talked about him earlier, okay? For me, Marvin Mims is most definitely in play, and he is in my cash lineup if Jerry Jeudy is out. If Jerry Jeudy plays, I probably will not be going the Marvin Mims route. I think I would more trust Tutu Atwell at that point. But again, that's where Sunday at 12, you come and see us, and we'll have this more locked down because we will have all the information. We don't have that information right now. We're kind of throwing some things out there to say, if this happens, this is where we might be looking. If this happens, this is where we might be looking. We've done the research. We've done the work. We're just waiting for, that confirmation that we need with inactives. Next guy, Jaden Reed. Another Michigan State guy. I don't know how these guys keep popping up because I'm not a Michigan State fan, but nonetheless, very similar to the Marvin Mims and Tutu Atwell. He is at minimum salary. We already know Christian Watson is out. He got ruled out a little bit earlier here on Friday. If Romeo Doubs is out as well, Jaden Reed is in my cash lineup. He essentially becomes a wide receiver one there. Not a huge fan of that offense. I think there's a lot of other ways for them to go in the running game, but you're going to give me the probable target leader on a team and he's a minimum salary. That's a cash dream. So all three of those guys I just mentioned, I'm going to play at least one of them, probably two, but we got some other news to figure out to see what we're going to do. Last guy that I'm interested in, probably won't play him just because of the way that I'm building, but I do think he's very cash viable this week, and that's Drake London. I think that, he's the very clear, target getter in Atlanta. I don't trust Kyle Pitts. A lot of the stuff that I'm hearing out of Atlanta is just about, how Kyle Pitts has improved as a blocker. No one's talking about Kyle Pitts as, a guy who, is going to.
Why they drafted him to catch passes and go nuts and yards after catch and find the end zone and put up 15 to 18 touchdowns a year. It's concerning.
Yeah. So Drake London is the target share guy there until he isn't. So I would be happy to take my shot there. We look over 5,400 on DraftKings. So he's not super cheap, but he's certainly not expensive. That's another route you could take if you decided, against Hill or against Justin Jefferson and you wanted to slide somebody else in there. I think Drake London is a good one. Anything you want to add to the wide receivers there?
No, it's beautifully stated and well done. One thing I will say, and give me a moment to look it up here, but we're talking about the Rams and what they're doing, and the thing with Stafford and his Kelly, his wife, said I don't know if it was a snafu, but everyone's got a podcast, everyone's got a way to get useless information. She said that my husband's having a tough time, connecting with all these younger kids, and it's like, what can you do? He made $700 million or whatever. But to me, you mentioned Tutu Atwell. I love the idea of I don't mean to chop up this kid's name, but it's Puka Nacua. He looks very good as well. And to me, I thought it was going to be Justin Jefferson and Puka was going to be the number 2, and then Tutu Atwell was going to be the number 3. Maybe I got some misinformation, but regardless, it's like you throw in Van Jefferson, Tutu, and Puka, you just shake them up, and they're going to be on the field. Matthew Stafford's arm is still very, very dependable. I'm sure it's still there. Last I looked, it's not hanging off. So to me, any sort of young, cheap talent that you can get in the Los Angeles Rams, wide receiver room this week, I would run with it. And I would imagine we're going to be able to run with this this Rams wide receiver, these 2 or 3 guys for the next few weeks until people start figuring it out and the ownership percentages bump out. So that's just one of those things where you can kind of sneak in little sneaky moves in the first few weeks of the season, and then people start to figure it out for themselves. And then we're just going to have to pivot, and no sweat off my brow. We'll be able to find a dozen more players that do that. But to me, I just wanted to mention Puka briefly.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that if I had to pick between the two for cash, I'm taking Tutu because I just feel like at the minimum, and back to your comment originally there about Stafford, he does have a connection with Tutu already. There, it's, he's not a rookie. So I would expect there to be, a higher floor there for him. And I'm not playing MME in this regard. So that's where Tutu is more interesting to me.
Yeah, fair enough. And I understand everything you're saying. Well, when we look at tight ends, we'll go over tight ends quick, and we'll get the heck out of here already up at 35 minutes. My whole move with tight ends since day one, my first ever FanDuel lineup I ever put in, I've never paid up for the tight end position. I've always faded it. So it was just natural to me to right bottom of the barrel and just punt tight ends as much as possible. And I've had a few people have had great success with this one. And I'm going to treat this like a lightning round here. Instead of going through every guy, the DVP matchups, the price tag across the board here, I'm going to do a lightning round, and we'll see where we are at the end of it. David Njoku, Cleveland's playing Cincinnati. Evan Ingram, Jacksonville at Indianapolis, only $5,800. Pat Freiermuth, Pittsburgh at San Francisco. Tough matchup because they have San Francisco. They have very good coverage linebackers, but to me, Pat Freiermuth, is it a sink or swim? Not necessarily, but I do believe in the tall country corn-fed kid here. We go down the list. Tyler Higbee, the Rams again. Here we go with the Rams. Higbee's playing in Seattle right now. Seattle's 31st overall against opposing tight ends. Are we going to play that soap opera game of Tyler Higbee, Willie Woney? Is he going to be good? Is he not going to be good? I don't know. I absolutely love Juwan Johnson this week, the New Orleans tight end, they're playing actually home against the Titans, who are 26th overall against tight ends. Juwan, only $5,100 on Yahoo. And I mean, I could just keep going and going and going and going. Dalton Kincaid, Luke Musgrove, Greg Dulcich, Chig Okwanu. Maybe not him. New Orleans is very good against tight ends, but you get what I'm getting at. Dalton Schultz, new home in Houston. They're playing in Baltimore, but when we saw Dalton in Dallas, he was all over in the middle of the field. And right now, Houston, what do they have going for him? They have CJ Stroud, the first overall pick. So to me, that would just be, having done this for a long time, a rookie quarterback of a high caliber of CJ Stroud, kid's a stone cold stud, was in college. What's the first thing you think of? Maybe a little safety blanket, maybe a little binky, whatever you want to do. And that binky could be Dalton Schultz. So to me, don't overlook a guy like Dalton Schultz in what could be a mid-tier or even a crappy offense. I don't care about that. If Houston scores 2 touchdowns and one of them's to Dalton Schultz, given his price tag on FanDuel at only $5,200, then your day is made in that one little spot. So to me, tight end this week is just a lightning round, or it's like the Price is Right wheel. Just spin it, don't go over, and make sure you hit on one or two of these guys.
Yeah, when it comes to tight end, I do the same thing. I pretty much pay down 95% of the time. The exception is, if I've got Kelsey going up against Seattle, like you said, Seattle's traditionally terrible against a tight end. I'm at least willing to consider paying up for an elite tight end in a smash spot. But it has to meet that criteria. It has to be an elite tight end, which a lot of times is Kelsey or nobody, and the matchup has to be perfect. Otherwise, it's pay down at tight end. I'm actually surprised that you didn't name the guy that is my very strong lean right now for my tight end in cash, because it checks all the boxes that you were talking about. But I guess you can't name everyone, Chris, right? Hayden Hurst.
Well, wait. Let's see. Yeah. Well, let's see what we have here.
Yeah,
Hayden Hurst.
He's on your list.
Hayden Hurst. Yeah. It's right here, circled right here. Absolutely. On my list. I just didn't have time to say it, but yeah.
No, Hayden Hurst. Same
Phenomenal.
situation you're talking about with Stroud, right? We don't know where the targets are going to go in Carolina. Rookie quarterback, first start, very common for them to, be comfortable with, dump offs. Hayden Hurst is $3,000 on DraftKings. Fits the mold that I need as a punt tight end. Again, I want to fit in Eckler. I want to fit in Hill. I want to fit in Jefferson. This is how I do it. I do it with Sam Howell. I do it with Rashad White. I do it with, Hayden Hurst. The other guy that's interesting to me, and of course you named this guy, is Luke Musgrave. And we, like I said, with Jaden Reed, we already know that Christian Watson's out. If I come to find that, Romeo Doubs is out as well, Musgrave may, I don't know if he will, but Musgrave then becomes a very real conversation for me between him and Hurst. If Dobbs is still in, I'm probably going to be out. I like Hayden Hurst so much more, but I could get my hand forced to say, you know what, Musgrave is going to have so many more opportunities when that team, target leaders are going to be Aaron Jones, awesome, we all know him. After that, what is it? Is it Jaden Reed? Probably. Is it Musgrave? Maybe. So he's a guy that I had to list because he's the other punt option. And again, if Watson and Dobbs are both out, he becomes a ridiculously interesting play.
I agree. And if I may, I hate to cut you off. When you look at Luke, right? Green Bay's going to Chicago, bitter NFC North rivalry. We get that. Justin Fields they've already crowned this kid for some odd reason, and all the running around he's done has made Chicago Bears fans loopy. But let me tell you, daydream a little bit and tell you a story of how I think this goes down. I think we see a case here where Green Bay gets an extra possession or two just because Justin Fields makes a mistake. He runs and fumbles the football. He makes a mistake and throws an interception in plus territory, and it gives Green Bay, an extra possession or two. And when that happens, let's say, Chicago is going down the field, right? And they're in their own kind of territory. They want to make they're on their own 20. They want to make a big splash play. Justin Fields completely misreads this thing, and Green Bay, Jair Alexander intercepts the ball. So now Green Bay has the ball on their own 20-yard line. What's the first thing teams like to do after a turnover like that in the zone? They want it, boom, splash play, go right to the end zone. So what are the chances of Justin Fields making some mistakes in his own area of the field, and then Jordan Love in the new spot as the new starting quarterback in Green Bay going, let's get after it. Let's chuck the ball to Luke. Who knows how these things could happen, but it is very, very possible. Some things, one or two of these things happen as it stands now. So to me, as you're saying, Luke is a fantastic play. And when you look at him on FanDuel, at least, only $4,500. That's unbelievably cheap. I think the lowest you can get is $4,000. So the 500 more bucks, and you can get into a fun game script, daydream kind of scenario in that game.
Yeah, and he's kind of like, like a Dalton Kincaid, another rookie tight end who is more of a wide receiver really than a tight end. I mean, they're just not your prototypical old school tight end. So he's someone who's very interesting. In MME, I actually would rather Dobbs played because I think I know that will help suppress Musgrave's ownership. If you get Watson and Dobbs both out, Musgrave is going to carry some ownership because of his price and his newfound opportunity. So we'll see. Other guy I want to throw out there, if you for some reason are just saying, hey, I can't play a rookie tight end, especially in week one, because I get it. That's part of my sentiment too here. If Musgrave was a 3-year player, I have to say, I guess we'd have a little more of a sample size on him, but I would probably be playing him. But if you just can't if you're like, I don't want to punt, there's really no elite tight end to pay up for. So I want to give you an option in the mid-range, which is where I hate playing tight end, especially in cash. I hate the mid-range, but sometimes there are guys that just really stand out, and it's the guy you mentioned, so I won't get too much into it, but Tyler Higbee, $4,800, not crazy expensive. If you want to get crazy in an MME, if you want to pair Musgrave and Higbee together and go double tight end and just get batshit crazy, I don't think that's ridiculous. You're saving the money with Musgrave. you're technically saving money with Higbee as well, but you're still getting a guy who could get some decent volume. So not somewhere that I'm going to go and cash this week for just a variety of reasons, but somebody that I think is worth at least having on your radar, and someone worth mentioning, Chris.
Absolutely, and I love it. And I don't know if we can work this out on the fly. I don't know if we ever intended to talk DSTs or
Always talk DSTs.
or kickers or any of this stuff. So, well, when we look at defenses, it's not that I'm not taking credit for figuring this out, but someone had mentioned it, through the years or a few years ago. And I started to pay attention, every Monday, right after the Millie Maker has been finished, or like the big GPP where it's $100,000 you win. You always find the highest scoring DST is always involved in any lineup that wins any sort of big money. And again, when it comes to DST and DFS, there is, I was going to say there is no rhyme or reason, but that would be false, because there is a rhyme and a reason. And I have a rhyme and a reason for everything I do when it comes to DFS, and especially when it comes to DST, right? When you look at it right now, on FanDuel, at least, it reads in order of how expensive they are. It reads Baltimore, Washington, San Francisco, Denver, Seattle, Dallas, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Philly, Jacksonville, and then New Orleans. New Orleans being $4,300 in that order here. Baltimore's playing Houston. That's kind of everybody on earth is going to have Baltimore for $5,000 on FanDuel in their DST spot. So there's no money to be made, if that makes sense. Because if we're all on Baltimore, then it's just it's a wash. It's a flush. It's a wash spot, right? Everybody's going to be on it. Baltimore against a rookie quarterback, at home, however you want to put it. But to me, I really do love the idea of the Green Bay Packers in Chicago. Call me crazy, but Green Bay right now, they have, how can I put this? I was going to say Green Bay's got a lot to prove, but do they really? What historic, franchise, but they're gone. Aaron Rodgers is gone. And so I do believe they want to prove that they can live with life without Aaron Rodgers. And again, you're playing Chicago, a mortal enemy in Justin Fields. And again, I could be completely wrong here, and Justin Fields goes nuts and makes Green Bay look foolish. But I do believe Green Bay's had they've had 2-3 months to plan for this game. And I do believe they're going to, I'm not going to say they're going to make Justin Fields look stupid, because that would be hard to do. The kid is phenomenal. He is a stud, but I like Green Bay just for not even for the point totals. The final score could be 50-51. That doesn't matter. I do see a case where Green Bay bats down passes. They sack him. They get interceptions. They force fumbles. And that's all I'm looking for in my DST. And I think Green Bay can have a large portion of that stuff. And one more, if I may, Philadelphia Eagles look to be one of, if not the best DSTs, defensive units in all of football this season. They're in New England this week, and they're only $4,600, which is kind of surprising to me. Philadelphia playing in New England. Mac Jones is their starting quarterback. Could we see Zappy this season? I don't know. But to me, Philadelphia playing in New Orleans it's going to say something to me. And to be honest with you, Philadelphia might be the number one overall scoring defense when all is said and done at the end of week 1 here, Dave.
So, defenses is something that we have talked about every week, because like you said, almost always, whoever wins these big contests has the number one defense. And so to me, the defense becomes so much game theory, because it is not even close. It's hands down the most volatile position of everything that we talked about. A lot of times, honestly, you can just pick names out of a hat and you're just as successful with picking who's going to be the top defense of the week. It's very, very, very rare, if not ever, that I will pay up for a defense. The one thing that I'll say, just from an MME perspective, whoever the chalk defense is for that week, they are out of my player pool. Not even a consideration. I don't care who it is and how great of a season they're having and who they're facing. I will not play them, because you pretty much piss away your opportunity to take a tournament down by doing so. It's just not going to work. In cash, that's different. If you've got someone that's just uber chalk, then you're probably just playing them. And that would kind of lead us into what we're doing here this week, at least is what I'm doing this week. But in a nutshell, for me, as much as I like paying down at tight end, and I do it 95% of the time, I feel even more strongly about defense. In a perfect world, what I'm looking for in defense is give me a team on DraftKings. At least I don't know the FanDuel pricing as well. But on DraftKings, I pretty much stick to 2,500 or under. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule. That's just kind of giving you an idea that I'm looking at one of the, bottom. For this week, there's 6 defenses 2,500 or less. So just to give you an idea of the range that I'm looking. Now, this week, we just happen to have a bit of an outlier. Washington comes in at $2,800. So $300 difference, not a humongous deal. But their matchup with the Cardinals is just too much to overlook. They're going up against Joshua Dobbs, the guy who's been in town for a week and a half, maybe. Not even, no offense, not even a great quarterback to begin with. Arizona is in full on, before the season even starts, tanking mode. If Joshua Dobbs is absolutely horrendous, they go to Clayton Tune. So a rookie, not even a highly regarded rookie. I think he was drafted, 4th round or something?
I would prefer him, to be honest. Did you watch Clayton Tune in preseason? This kid was outstanding. I'm already preparing for a week coming up soon where Clayton Tune is going to headline bottom of the barrel. I'm just telling you that now.
Yeah, I can see it because it's going to be cheap. But, like Chris said, for defenses, I don't really care too much about points. I care about interceptions. I care about sacks. That's where they rack up their points. They can give up 50 points, like he said, and they can still be a really good defense when they get, 3 picks, take one back for a touchdown, get 7 sacks. They've scored a shit ton of points. So pay down. Never play the chalk defense in MME. But that leads me to the Commanders here. They're kind of a no-brainer for me for this week. A couple other names I want to give you just in case you decide you want to go a different route. That's fine. And as it turns out, they end up being the bottom 3 price defenses. So they're all going to make you go, but that's the way you play defense, especially in cash. So we're looking at the Raiders going up against Denver. The game is in Denver. I mean, there's no guarantee that, that Sean Payton offense is going to be anything spectacular. Judy's either going to be limited or out. I could see the Raiders making sense, especially at that price, to allow you to get everybody else in. Tampa Bay, I don't think Tampa Bay defense is that bad. Other than Justin Jefferson, you don't know what you're going to get necessarily in Minnesota. Yes, they're at home, but Kirk Cousins very well could shit the bed there. You get some sacks, you get a pick 6, you're in great shape for $2,200. And then you got to mention, Houston, even though they are terrible, they're $2,100. They're basically free. Again, it allows you to, pay up everywhere else. As crazy as it is, they are absolutely at least a consideration for me in cash because we are punting the position and just hoping that they get 5 or 6 points. And if they do that, you're great. If you told me right now, hey, the Texas defense, they're going to put up 7 points, they would move up to my second favorite defense behind Washington. And that's not even a good day, but at their price, it's just too hard to pass up, Chris.
Absolutely. And before we get the heck out of here, I want to say one thing. If there's some people that play the whole Thursday through Monday slate, you have every game readily available to you. I mean, that's a tough nut to crack, playing putting in a lineup for every game possible. And while we're on DSTs, I want to show you something. The Detroit Lions, dead last ranked in terms of pricing against Kansas City. They were only $3,000 against Kansas City. And look what happened. Pick 6. Yeah. They were all over Patrick Mahomes. So anything is possible, when you're looking at a DST here, Dave.
And that's why I said they are so volatile that, I say this and it sounds like a joke, and it's only partially a joke. You could take all the teams, put them in a hat, pick one out, and that very well could be the top defense of the week. Now, we can't do that, and we would never do that, but that's why like I said, 2,500 is usually, that's when I start to look at defense. I look at defense for the beginning of the week and say, okay, who's 2,500 and less? Does anything stand out that I really like? Because that's almost always, that's 98% of the time where I go for defense.
Absolutely. How do we want to tie this thing up here?
Well,
Dave.
my son is downstairs now, probably playing Fortnite, so he's out of the question, Chris. Why don't you go ahead and tell people about what we got going on Sunday, how they can get to us, a little bit about Fantasy Six Pack maybe, and then, like I said, we'll jet out.
Yes, absolutely. Week 1 is fast approaching. We already had game 1 of week 1 on Thursday. We're doing the broadcast here, and then everything just moves to the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel on Sunday. We're kind of treating it like a radio show. So from like 9 in the morning till 1 p.m. in the afternoon, we're going to have, shows and we're going to be chit-chatting and talking. Dave and I, we come on at around 12:30 to right out to lock at 1 p.m., giving you every little last tidbit that we can get our hands on. But in the meantime, between now and lock on Sunday, go to the Fantasy Six Pack Discord, go to the site, sign up for the all-purpose or all members access. You get it. It comes with a ton of stuff, and I'm not trying to hawk this stuff. I truly believe in it. That's why I joined this website, because it has so much potential, and it's already lived up to everything my wildest dreams. But just go there. You get everything you can ever want in Discord. You can get direct contact with me, with Dave, with Joe, with Keith, with anybody who's anybody here at Fantasy Six Pack. So before we see you again next time, I want to thank everybody for basically my first week here at Fantasy Six Pack. The articles, the Thursday Night Football video, everything's doing well. I appreciate all the kind words and the comments that everybody's given me. And Dave, you have something to say before we split?
Yeah, just want to say real quick, I don't know if you just misspoke, but we go live for the DFS portion at noon. So noon, probably going to go till 12:30-ish. We'll go a little later if, we got tons of questions and whatever, if there's a lot of news, but we're going at noon. Start at noon.
Even better. So college football kickoff on Saturdays, and on Sundays, you'll get Dave and I on Sunday mornings into the afternoon, obviously. So thanks so much for being here. It was a blast, and we'll do this thing again the same time next week. Until then, we'll see you. Bye.